Welcome to SplitSecond. If you want to buy the best sleeves or other magic-related accessories, head down to Dragon Shield using the affiliate link below.
Welcome to Commander Masters 2, Modern Horizons 3 edition, where we bring you all new commanders from this set. Josh built a strong build for Nadu Winged Wisdom, a deck full of cheap ways to target his creatures in order to draw several cards per turn. David is on an Orzhov list packing several on-color combos, as well as several extorting synergies to bring his opponent's down life totals to 0 in a sweep. Bal built a storming mono-red deck with Ashling, Flame Dancer at the helm. Filled with rituals and ways to copy spells, he hopes to rummage through the deck through Ashling's ability and find his finishing combos. Finally, Elder is playing Rosheen Roaring Prophet, you guessed it, food chain deck, where Rosheen is the outlet to find any creature spells with X in the mana cost to finish the game. Josh is going first, but he was unfortunate to have to mulligan down to 5. He kept a Breeding Pool, Boseiju and Tolaria, which is an interesting land that can make him draw a card just by targeting one of his creatures. March of Swirling Mist for removal and Fierce Guardianship for interaction. He sent Gemstone Caverns and Sea King's Blessing to the bottom. David mulliganed once and found quite a decent hand. Godless Shrine and Command Tower for lands with a Mox Ember and Arcane Signet for ramp. Esper Sentinel might start drawing him some cards, and then he still has Drenith to slow his opponent's commanders, and Lurrus for recursion. Bal was also unfortunate, but at the same time not so unfortunate to mulligan down to 5. He found a single mountain paired with a Mana Crypt, Mox Opal and Jewel Lotus for ramp. If that wasn't everything, he has a Wheel of Misfortune that he can also cast on turn 1 after his commander. He sent to the bottom Wild Slash and March of Reckless Joy. Last but not least, Elder followed the trend of mulligan to 5, Tarnished Citadel and Misty Rainforest with an Elvish Mystic and Rite of Flame for ramp, allows for a turn 2 Rosheen. Invasion of Ikoria can help him pivot his game plan, and he sent to the bottom 1000 Year Elixir and Carpet of Flowers. Now, before the game starts, we have an announcement to do. October 25 to 27 we will be coming to MagicCon Las Vegas. That's right! If you're around, come meet us and play some games with us. Find your early bird tickets through the link in the description below. Now, ready for the match? Josh starts the game with a Tolaria, raising some eyebrows until the aha moment actually happens. David starts his turn with the Command Tower and casts Esper Sentinel before passing. Bal plays a mountain and casts a Mana Crypt. Players ask him to pay, but he doesn't, explaining it will be understandable. David draws 1. Bal then casts a Mox Opal and follows it with a Jewel Lotus. He casts his commander Ashling Flame Dancer, and with the 2 cards in hand, he slams a Wheel of Misfortune. Players groan while they ponder whether to wheel or not. Ashling triggers and Bal discards a card and draws 1. While the table wants to deny Bal the wheel, David mentions he's actually happy with his hand, so things might not turn out how players wanted. Votes are revealed and Bal takes 15 damage from the wheel, all while David and even Elder, with only 5 cards in hand, decide to keep them. Elder knows that at least this way he can play his game plan, rather than a new Mysterious 7. Bal has no follow-up, so he passes. Elder plays a Misty Rainforest and cracks it for a Taiga. He casts an Elvish Mystic and passes. On the unstep though, Josh fires a Mystical Tutor, Sentinel triggers and David draws. Josh ponders and decides to do the responsible play of finding Force of Vigor to the top. Josh gets to his turn, plays a Verdant Catacombs and cracks it for a Tropical Island. He casts an Arcane Signet, triggering Sentinel and can't pay. He then follows it with Shuko and ends his turn. David gets to his turn, plays a Godless Shrine and casts his commander, Sorin of House Markov. He follows it with a Mox Diamond, discarding a Swamp. He then casts Mox Ember, extorting through Sorin, gaining the 3 necessary life to then proceed to his second main phase, triggering Sorin to be transformed into a Ravenous Neonate. He activates it to create a food token, and this way during his next turn he will more easily gain enough life to either kill Ashling or Nadu, which is the major concern of the table at the moment, with a great card advantage potential thanks to Shuko. We're back to Bal, he untaps and the Mana Crypt triggers, the social stack opens and Josh feels like firing his Force of Vigor now, so he can slow down Bal with the potential to storm off. He targets Crypt and Esper Sentinel, so Bal can pressure Sorin with Ashling. Sentinel triggers and he can't pay. After some consideration, Bal casts 80 Bal's Trickery on it, triggering Ashling and Esper Sentinel, and he pays for it. He then discards and draws before the Bal's Trickery resolves, making Josh mill 3 cards and revealing an Invasion of Ikoria, which he proceeds to cast X equals 0, finding a Dryad Arbor and making Elder defend the battle. The Crypt trigger now resolves and Bal loses 3 life. He draws, plays an Ancient Tomb and casts a Mox Diamond, discarding a Barbarian Ring. Bal now shows a Lightning Bolt, which he isn't sure what to target. While he could kill Sorin, he and David agree that next turn killing Nadu over Ashling would be better, so Bal targets David's life total directly, triggering Ashling once more. Bal discards and draws, and Ashling pyroclasms his opponent's boards as well as their life totals. Bal now proceeds to combat, swinging at Sorin, but David still has a say in the matter and fires a Source of Plowshares at Ashling. Sorin survives with 5 loyalty and Bal passes to Elder, which was pushed back in his tempo, losing his Dork. He draws, plays a Shifting Woodland and sadly passes. Josh gets to his turn, and with just 3 cards in hand, having chosen the control path so far, he feels forced to cast his commander, even if it is just going to be killed next turn. With Spellskite available in hand, he just needs to find those 2 lands, and he'll be set off to 2 more cards and able to protect Nadu. Nadu hits play and Josh equips it with Shuko, triggering and revealing a Polluted Delta. Despite Shuko being attached to Nadu, he is able to repeat the free equip activation of Shuko targeting Nadu once again, so he triggers the commander once more. He now reveals a Sylvan Safekeeper. While that is a great reveal that could allow him to protect Nadu next turn and get 2 more triggers this turn, his breeding pool is in his graveyard, so Polluted Delta can fetch a green source to cast Safekeeper, and he sadly passes. David plays his own Polluted Delta, which he cracks for a scrubland. What a scrub. He sacrifices the food token, gaining 3 life, and then casts a Drenith Magistrate, extorting, so he gains 3 more life. He is now able to activate Sorin to deal 6 damage to Nadu, triggering them and revealing a Field of the Dead. David gains 6 life, and is showing off how Orzhov can control the board way better than Simic so far. Valen taps and takes another 3 from the crypt. He plays a mountain and willingly casts a Lotus Petal, in hopes of feeding a big Dockside from Helder to enable him to be an active player at the table, since Bal and Josh are running dry of options to slow David. Elder gets to his turn, plays a forest and fires his Rite of Flame. He then casts his own Invasion of Ikoria, entering play and searching for a Dockside Extortionist, and making Bal defend it. Dockside trades 8 treasures and Elder passes with 2 cards in hand. We're back to Josh. He simply casts Lightning Greaves and takes the opportunity to crack his Delta for a snow-covered island before passing to David. He draws, plays a tapped Concealed Courtyard and casts an Arcane Signet. He then casts Laros of the Dream Den, and with its ability he casts Esper Sentinel from his graveyard. He then upticks Sorin, creating a food token and passes with 3 cards in hand. Bal once again loses the Crypt roll, 3 for 3. He draws and finds a Shatter Skull Smashing, which he casts X equals 5, dealing 3 damage to Drenith and 2 to Laros, to hopefully set David a bit back and allow the rest of the table to bring some pressure to it. Sentinel triggers and he pays for it. He passes, but in the end step Elder fires a Whirly Tutor, and the writing is on the wall. Esper Sentinel triggers and he easily pays for it. Timur Sabertooth is surged to the top and Elder proceeds to his turn. He draws the cat, plays Tarnished Citadel, his last card in hand, and slam dunks the best cat of all. No one has a response to it, and with it he demonstrates a loop where he activates Timur Sabertooth to return Dockside back to his hand in order to recast it, paying a total of 4 mana and generating 12 treasures in the process. He makes infinite treasures. From there he casts his commander, Rosheen Roaring Prophet, which upon entering play he mills 6 cards and may put a card with X in its mana cost back into his hand. He can bounce Rosheen with the cat as many times as he wants, and recast it until he finds the finisher for the table. He finds Shatter Skull Smashing, then Exocrine, then By Force, then Fizzle, then Comet Star is found, and he dumps a huge amount of mana into it to finish his opponents. GG. Since this was a fairly small match, we decided to play another one. This time, David is going first, and he kept his first 7 with a Verdant Catacombs and Isolated Chapel for lands, Talisman of Hierarchy for ramp, and 2 decent enchantments they say. Bloodsheaf Ascension layers with the combos of the deck decently, and Necroposance has great card potential, which he can slow roll through his several life-gaining effects. Orcish Bowmasters needs no introduction, and Deadly Relic for removal. Bal kept his first 7 with another fast start into a wheel on turn 1. Single Ramunap Ruins for lands, but paired with a Lotus Petal and Chrome Mox for ramp will enable him to cast Wheel of Fortune turn 1, messing everyone's mulligan decisions. Haze of Rage is a combo piece, and Kozilek allows him not to lose to infinite Ashling triggers. Elder mulligan once, and wait a second, why do we bother? Just kidding, of course we'll show you. Crystal Vein and Forest for lands with an early Arbor Elf as Dark and Dockside already found. Eldritch Evolution can maybe help him find Sabertooth or pivot into something else. Spiteful Banditry serves a more grindy purpose when needing to either clear the board or be revealed through Rosheen's mana ability for a big X spell like Comet Storm. Last but not least, Josh also mulliganed once and found a really decent hand. Breeding Pool, Snow-Covered Forest, and Minamo for lands. Note, the last one can also target Nadu for card draw. Arcane Signet for ramp, and Afeto Alchemist and Seeker Skybreak both can target themselves for 2 card draws per turn. Strix Serenade is a new addition in testing. Ready for round 2? David starts the game with a Verdant Catacombs, cracking it for a Scrubland. He casts Bloodsheaf Ascension and passes. Bal plays a Ramunap Ruins followed by Lotus Petal, and still casts a Chrome Mox, imprinting March of Reckless Joy. With his 3 mana, he slams Wheel of Fortune. As you've seen starting hands, no one has a response to that, so the game somewhat restarts from here, and we'll show you the new hands each player got from the wheel. With no further follow-up, Bal proceeds to the end step. Bloodsheaf Ascension triggers, and after its resolution, Elder fires a Noxus Revival, paying 2 life to return the freshly discarded Dockside to the top of his deck. He then proceeds to his turn with a decent hand to play still. He casts a Mana Crypt and plays a Tarnished Citadel. He then casts 6, taking 3 damage from the Citadel, which in turn gets David's first counter on the Ascension in the end step. We're now on Josh's turn, who can still play magic with the new 7. He plays an Urza Saga, gaining its first ability, and then casts a Lotus Petal, shipping it to David, who also wasn't set behind by the wheel. He draws, plays a Polluted Delta, and cracks it to find an untapped Godless Shrine, paying 2 life. He casts a Mana Vault and then passes. Val draws, plays a tapped Arena of Glory, and casts a Ruby Medallion, passing the turn, while the table somewhat mocks the turn 1 wheel. Elder untaps and loses the Crypt roll. There goes another counter on that Ascension. He attacks David with 6, triggering it to mill 3 cards, but no lands are found. This way he is forced to play his Urza Saga, gaining its first chapter. He follows it with an Imperial Recruiter, entering play, and he searches for an Elvish Spirit Guide. This ensures he can attempt to win in the next turn with that extra mana. In the end step, David's Ascension gets one more counter and we're back to Josh. He finds and plays a Polluted Delta, which he cracks for a Tropical Island. He then casts Unctus, Grand Meta Attack, which not only synergizes well with Nadu, it can also combo on its own with a Fatal Alchemist or Seeker of Skybreak, which unfortunately are both in the graveyard, but he does have some respect to find Ewit if he wants to go for that line. David gets to his turn, plays an Arid Mesa and cracks it for your planes. After some table talk and understanding Timur Sabertooth is in Elder's graveyard, all he needs to win next turn is to find a land in the top 4 cards, considering the 6 attack trigger, in order to retrace the cat and cast Dockside for 6. With this in mind, David takes 1 for the team. He casts his Commander Sorin and follows it with a Walking Ballista X=1, while extorting it. This enables his Sorin to be transformed in the second main phase, and David mines it to deal 3 damage to 6, and then remove the single counter from Ballista to ping 6 for good. Still before passing, David fires an Imperial Seal and searches for a Mindcrank to the top, since there's great chances that with the Crypt or Tarnished Citadel, that Ascension will be online by the next turn. The table is aware though of what that tutor might have searched for. Val draws and finds no lands, so he exerts his Arena of Glory to help cast Ashling with haste, and swings it directly at Sorin, so David isn't capable of killing a player next turn with Mindcrank. Elder untaps, and all but David rejoice for the first time an opponent's Crypt deals no damage. He draws and his Saga gains its second ability. He plays a top-decked mountain and casts his Rosheen by exiling his Elvish Spirit Guide in the process, not using the Citadel. Rosheen enters play and triggers, and he mills 6 cards, finding Invasion of Ikoria. He might have lost 6, but he's still able to win next turn with Sabertooth coming down paired with Dockside. He then attacks David for 1 and passes. Josh gets to his turn, draws, and his Saga reaches its final chapter. He floats 1 mana in response and then finds a Jewel Lotus into play. He now casts his commander, Nadu Winged Wisdom, and having Cyclonic Rift in hand, he decides to somewhat add nos here, where he uses Ankta's ability of paying 2 life and targeting one of his creatures to become blue and artifact until end of turn. This hopefully will find him lands and creatures to keep going, or at least to interact with David's board. First activation on Nadu, he reveals a Warrior's Lesson. Second activation targeting Nadu, he reveals a Mental Misstep. First activation now targeting Unctus, and he reveals a Misty Rainforest. Second activation on Unctus, and he reveals an Invasion of Ikoria. Once again, Josh has no more access to Breeding Pool, which was discarded earlier, so he unfortunately has to sacrifice Misty Rainforest for a basic forest, which prevents him from casting Baby Rift on the Ascension and then misstepping it. Dryad Arbor was also an option, so he could get 2 more Nadu triggers. But he has something else in mind. He now casts a Crop Rotation and finds Gaia's Cradle into play, trying to go for a more greedy line, attempting to win on the spot. He fires the Summoner's Pact and searches for Scud Swarm, which he casts right away. He now activates Unctus paying 2 life and targeting Scud Swarm, and reveals a Chrome Mox. Second Unctus activation on Scud Swarm, and he reveals a Sol Ring. Unfortunate that he had no lands, so he just casts the Chrome Mox imprinting Neoform, and follows it with Sol Ring, ending his turn. In the end step still, Bloodshift Ascension gets his third counter, and we're going to David's turn 4. Will he pull it off? He draws and takes 1 from the Mana Vault. Without any concerns, he just fires Mindcrank. The whole table considers their options, and in response to it, Elder fires a Pyroblast, targeting Scud Swarm just so Nadu triggers. Josh reveals a Seeking's Blessing. So, with some more stack talk, Josh does mention he has a Pact of Negation that he could cast and hope to find enough lands in the upkeep through Seeking's Blessing, which would create 3 triggers, and maybe he'd find the lands to be able to pay for both pacts. But then the table wakes up to life and understands that Elder has the win in his next turn. So Mindcrank here actually kills Elder, either by a bad Crypt roll or by Urza Saga reaching its final chapter. No pact is fired and the players are held at gunshot by David. A single point of life loss or a card hitting the yard means death. We're on Bal's turn. He found a Barbarian Ring and he just casts Harmonic Prodigy, which synergizes well with Ashling. He then attacks the Vid with Ashling before passing. Elder taps, and well, he loses the Crypt roll. However, only a top deck removal like Nature's Claim would allow him to survive the Vid's loop being started after Saga triggers and is put in the graveyard. By losing 3 life here from the Crypt, Mindcrank makes him mill 3 cards, and those 3 cards being milled trigger Bloodstream Ascension to drain Elder for 2 for each card, which keeps the engine going. Elder dies and the Vid is 20 life points healthier. Ascension still gets a 4th counter in the end step, and we're back to Josh. He untaps and considers his options for a moment. Summoner's Pact triggers goes on the stack, and he starts by Baby Rifting Ascension back to the Vid's hand, and then he uses Cradle to pay for the rest of the pact. He draws and plays a Mana Confluence, triggering Scoot Swarm to create an insect token. He then casts Warrior's Lesson, targeting Nadu and Unctus, triggering each of them and revealing a Waterlogged Grove, entering play and creating another insect token, and then revealing a Sylvan Paradise to his hand. He does cast Sylvan Paradise, paying 1 life through the Grove, which triggers Mindcrank and he mills a Green Sun Zenith. He targets all his 5 creatures with the Sylvan Paradise, and he reveals Force of Vigor, Hullbreaker Horror, Chord of Calling, Eldritch Evolution, and the last one, a Fabricate. No lands unfortunately, which would allow him to create more creatures, and if he managed to hit 6 lands, he starts creating copies of Scoot Mob, which go exponential on ETB and new creatures to target. He now activates Unctus, targeting one of the insects that can still trigger Nadu's ability, paying 2 life, triggering Mindcrank to mill 2 cards, and revealing a Llanowar Elves to his hand. He does it again, targeting another insect, paying 2 life, milling 2 cards, and revealing Shifting Woodland into play, triggering Scoot Swarm for another insect, and only missing 1 land for the threshold. 1 insect can still trigger once, and the new one can trigger twice, so he targets the first one for its last trigger, paying another 2 life, milling 2 cards, and revealing a Legless Quick Reflexes into his hand. He was hoping to eventually be able to core for Hullbreaker Horror, but he drew it, so now he does cast the core for 3, and since he used Unctus ability on Scoot Swarm and 2 insects, once they become tapped to convoke the spell, they trigger to draw and discard a card each. So now he's able to actually discard Hullbreaker Horror, hoping to reach 4 extra mana to activate Shifting Woodland to become a copy of the Horror. Considering Ewit, Spellseeker, Lotus Cobra and Dryad, he eventually gets the Dryad, so Scoot Swarm can now create a copy of itself, and therefore he gains 2 creatures this way, which allows him to activate Unctus 4 more times, for a total of 8 life, and life is in short supply these days. He pays another 2 life, targeting the clone Scoot Swarm with Unctus, milling 2 with Mindcrank and revealing Lightning Greaves into his hand. This could just be it. If he finds another land, he can cast Greaves and keep chain equipping Scoot Swarms, looking for more lands that will create more and more swarms until he goes through his whole deck. He activates Unctus again on the last insect that entered play, which still has another trigger available. He mills 2 and reveals Flesh Duplicant to his hand. Desperation is starting to grow. He now casts Seeking's Blessing, targeting the insect, Dryad and clone Scoot Swarm, paying 1 life through Mana Confluence and milling 1 through Mindcrank, which was an island he so desperately needed. He reveals Weir of Invention, Umbral Mantle and then Birds of Paradise. So with his last ditch effort, he taps out 4 Llanowar Elves, so he can activate Unctus onto it, paying 2 life, milling 2 and revealing Springheart Nantuko into his hand. Not wanting to go deeper in life totals, he just discards at cleanup and we're back to the Vid. What a turn of events. The Vid draws and loses 1 to the vault. He casts a Jewel Lotus and cracks it to recast his commander, Sorin of House Markov. Knowing Josh has a misstep, he doesn't recast the Ascension, and instead he sets up with a Wishclaw Talisman, ending his turn. On the end step though, Josh fires a Force of Vigor, targeting Bal's Medallion and the Vid's Mindcrank. Bal gets to his turn, forgetting the Omnath-like ability on Ashling. He starts by firing Seething Song, triggering Ashling twice thanks to Harmonic Prodigy, which also triggers his own prowess ability. First trigger resolves and Bal discards and draws. Second trigger now resolves, Bal discards, draws and Pyroclasms from Alpha Josh's board as well as his life total, which is reaching a critical stage. Bal now casts a Pyretic Ritual, triggering Ashling twice again and Prodigy. First trigger resolves, he discards, draws and generates 4 red mana. Then second trigger resolves and he remages again. He now casts Glinthorn Buccaneer, and fearing Bal's potential to keep storming, Josh fires his Pact of Negation, trying to hold on onto his last life points. However, Bal responds with a Deflecting Sword, triggering Ashling twice again and Prodigy's prowess. He discards Lion's Eye Diamond, draws, then discards and draws, and the SWAT ends up resolving, changing the target of Pact of Negation to Deflecting SWAT, making it not have a legal target upon resolution. The Minotaur hits play and Bal casts his last bullet, Wheel of Misfortune, triggering Ashling twice and Prodigy. He ramages once, and then by the second one he finds a Kozilek, which is his single card in hand and must discard, making him lose any possible line of breach after the wheel. The Einhorn Buccaneer pings his opponents twice, and then the wheel finally resolves. Bal isn't sure to what point would Josh try to team up with David in order to choose a huge number just to deny Bal's wheel, considering he can just lose now. But David having played a Wish Claw means he might have the win in the hand, or just gets what he needs, with a tutor available in play, so players vote independently. 14, 15 and 30 are the votes, which means Bal and David get to draw new 7 cards and Bal is dealt 30 damage. Bal didn't find much to keep going, so he plays a mountain and proceeds to attack, sending lethal damage to Josh, and saving Ashling to block Sorin to make it harder for David to gain life and transform it. We have our second casualty, and are now heading to David's turn. He draws and takes 1 from the Meta Vault. Considering no more blue mages are sitting at the table, David finds a reason to just go for it. With his fresh new 7, he plays an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth and casts a Mana Crypt. He follows it with a Sol Ring, and with the floating mana, he activates Wishclaw Talisman, giving it to Bal. He searches for Agatha's Soul Cauldron, as Ballista is already in the yard. He now casts a Demonic Tutor to try to find Francisco, but in response, Bal fires a Reiterate on the DT, triggering Ashling twice. David lets it resolve, so Bal remages once, triggering Buccaneer, and then discards and draws once more, pyroclasming David's board and his life, as well as Buccaneer. Now, holding priority to Reiterate, Bal casts Increasing Vengeance, targeting Reiterate, trying to pop off. Ashling triggers twice, but David responds to it by evoking a Solitude, pitching Source of Plowshares, as he can't afford any more mana. Solitude enters play and targets Buccaneer. However, Bal responds to Solitude's ability with a Bolt Band, triggering Ashling twice again. Bal ramages and gains 4 red mana from Ashling, while pinging David through Buccaneer. Then he ramages once again, and David loses 1 more life. Bolt Band changes the Solitude's target to Sorin, and without further responses from David, Increasing Vengeance copying Reiterate allows Bal to use the copied Reiterate to copy the original one, and keep copying the first one with the copies, which triggers Ashling to keep rummaging through his deck, and Buccaneer kills David in the process. GG. Thank you for joining us for today's match, everyone. If you would like to play with us in our matches, check out our Patreon below. Speaking of which, we'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons, and especially Izanagi, Jimo, Dragon Housecat, Pina, Ricardo, Katarina, Zinon, Chris, Turtlegodo and Chris, and Travis, our stack breakers. If you want to support us, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing or by becoming a patron yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment below, it greatly helps the channel. You can also take a look at one of these videos here.